Wait, we're live. Okay, we're live.
We're live. It is Saturday, April 11th. It is episode 18 of In Lieu of Fun show. I am Kate Klonick. Over there, joined by the cast of Ozarks. Ozark or Ozarks?
Ozark.
Ozark is Ben Wittes, and it is just us today and our lovely people who join us in Zoom and want to contribute. We will be talking about, I think, the kind of. I would like to talk about the guests we've had this week and things that are happening kind of going forward about with the show in particular. But then, I'd love to also just dive into questions from people in the audience, so to speak. How does that sound, Ben? Are you trying to figure out?
Sounds good. I think we should, so that is a bust. We are not going to be able to stream both to Facebook and to YouTube at the same time. So we're just streaming to Facebook, to YouTube.
Okay. I mean, that seems reasonable. It's kind of annoying, but I mean, oh yay, I'm seeing some familiar names. That's nice. We have some really nice people that join us every day. I'm sure you know some of them from Lawfare, but I'm learning about them for the first time.
Sorry, I blinked out for a moment. My internet is getting a little spotty. Why don't you talk for a few minutes while I clear this up, okay?
Okay, sounds good. So let's see. Today we are going to kind of do a recap, as I said before, on the last week's shows, and then talk about reflect a little bit on the past 18 episodes and see what's worked and what hasn't worked. We'd love to hear from you guys. I know that I've heard from a few people that they think that the one guest show has worked better than the 2 or 3 guest show. I think that there's open question of how much you want to hear Ben and I talk versus how much you'd like to hear the guest talk, but I'm sure that also depends on the guest. Basically, then just kind of catching up and seeing how everyone's doing out there related to everything pandemic and current events. One of the things that I wanted to talk about is that I have not been following if there has been any updates on the Boris Johnson situation. I do not know if he's out of the hospital or if he's still in the ICU or what's going on.
Last I heard, he was improving substantially, but he was still in the hospital. I have not heard anything since then.
Okay. Yeah, I have not, honestly, as I kind of exposed with the the USS Teddy Roosevelt, I've been spotty in my following of the news. Some of that is by design and some of that is by necessity. Part by design, it's kind of been nice to get away from the news for a little while because it gets a little bit overwhelming. But also by necessity, I just haven't had the time to spend on to watch the news. I know I don't have kids, but oh my gosh, I can't imagine how people keep up with homeschooling, working their normal jobs, parenting full time, because it's even when you're not schooling, you're parenting, cooking, taking care of everything else, making sure things don't fall down, you don't run out of toilet paper. And yeah.
So Allison writes in that Boris is out of the ICU, but still in the hospital.
Okay. Thanks, Allison. I did not know that. That was really helpful.
So if, as always, if you want to get in on the conversation, write in on the Q&A. We have shut down the chat because of our favorite Zoom bombers. If you leave an inappropriate question in the Q&A, we will remove you from the meeting with a shocking lack of due process. And
Can you do that? Is that what's been
yes,
happening to the Zoom bombers? Is
I
you've
have
been
a
removing them?
button that says remove. And
Perfect. That's fun.
if I click remove, I get a little warning that says this person will not be able to rejoin the meeting, to which my heart leaps every time because it says, yes, that is exactly what I want. I want that person not to be able to. So for example, Blueface Baby
I know.
just
I
wrote
know.
in, and I don't believe that person is real.
No.
Although I don't see the person on the attendees list. So I think that person has already gone away.
Yes.
But if I see trace of Blueface Baby, I will just obliterate him or her with it's like Zeus and the Thunderbolt. And it is a really satisfying thing. So to the Zoom bombers, bring it fucking on. I want to zap your ass.
Oh my God. Maggie Feldman-Piltch asks, I'm voting for a song of the day from Ben and Kate from both and or the guests. Song should ideally reflect the day. Oh, damn. Okay, I have to think about that.
So wait, let's bring Maggie on to talk about this because Maggie, Maggie's neighbor the other day wrote a letter to the New York Times complaining about Maggie's singing.
Yes.
And it was a letter to an advice columnist saying, what do I do about my neighbor who sings arias during the day and practices? So Maggie, first of all,
that is like the worst subtweet, Maggie. like that's like worse than subtweeting. That's what we did to subtweet.
So bad.
So, oh my God. So give us the short version of this story because it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So I should say that my downstairs neighbor and I, for the last almost 3 years, have had a less than positive relationship. That relationship has included them creating a website falsely claiming that my beloved dog, who is very, very sweet, murdered other animals and children in an attempt to prevent me from purchasing and moving into my home. So there's like a base level of chaos here. Basically, I am now, of course, working from home. Said neighbor is now working from home. And in the non-Nat Set Girl Squad part of my life, I am an opera singer. And it is something I have spent.
You know who else is an opera singer that we've had on the show, Maggie?
Who?
Jack Balkin.
Really?
Yep.
I didn't know.
Okay, so maybe.
I know. Sorry, I bet you didn't know that. But yes, he is.
No, now my mind is like totally blown.
I know.
We could have a lot of fun with that, and I want to know what done to him. You know, because so basically, what has happened is that I now have to rehearse at home, and in non-quarantine times, I wake up in the morning, I take the dog out for a nice long walk. And I warm up a little bit and then I, go leave and have my day. And so I've always been singing in my house, but for maybe 20 to 30 minutes at a time, and maybe they weren't paying enough attention. Well,
or maybe they weren't home because
they weren't home.
Right. I mean, I would say it was pretty early, but it's plausible, right? Anything is possible. So now they're definitely home and I'm still practicing my usual amount, but I also still have rehearsal via Zoom. And I don't know, Ben, I don't even know.
But here's the critical question, Maggie, because this seems to me like an awesome opportunity to write a letter to this advice columnist with your side of the story, asking the same advice columnist for advice about how to handle a neighbor who has been after your dog for 3 years, is clearly like a few marbles short of a full bag, and and is pretending not to know who you are,
right,
and doesn't like Puccini.
Right.
I assume you're singing Puccini, right?
Record,
and Handel?
Yes, yes, quite a bit of Puccini, quite a bit of Handel. And those for those that don't know me, I should say that I would not claim to be Leontine Price by any means, But I do in fact have an undergraduate and graduate degree in opera performance, right? So like, you know, I'm at this point, we would hope that if I'm really, really bad, someone would have told me, you know, like there are people that would otherwise pay money.
Yes,
to
Maggie,
hear the
but there
sound.
are, remember the bagpipe guy in New York?
Okay, fair.
Like, he might be a great bagpipe player, but like maybe.
Okay, and I would also say that I've been pretty conscious about the fact that other people are home. So weather permitting, I try to be out on my balcony, right? And it's not like it's, you know, late at night or super early in the morning. And I keep it as short as possible. And I theme my music choices. So I've been trying to do as much of Handel's Israel and Egypt as possible because, of course, it is the plagues, and it just felt appropriate. So
all right, but here's what I want to know, Maggie. And
Yeah.
actually, this is a question, I think you're an interested party here, but Kate is not. So in Italy, people go out on their balconies
Yes.
and they sing arias, and this is considered a great sign of unity and being together. And, you know, they go out and they sing the, you know, the chorus of the Hebrew slaves from Nabucco, and they all sing it together. It's wonderful, you know. And here we're writing letters to the New York Times complaining about each other's singing. So this is my cultural criticism question to you, Kate. What does this say about us?
Oh, I love this, because you want to know what the bane of my existence was while I was studying for the bar exam in Brooklyn? Was the fucking ice cream truck that would park park down the block for like 3.5 hours and jingle its little jingle from like the ice cream.
That's what a bazooka is for. Like that's that's actually what artillery was made for. You know,
most people would be like, what a joyful like sound of summer. But after 3 hours of the same ding, 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 like over and over again, like I was like, I'm gonna write a letter to the New York Times.
Oh my God.
I think what you should do, Maggie, is first of all, you should compose the letter, and before you send it, you should come on in lieu of fun and get our critiques of the letter.
I think it's a great idea.
And we can have some fun with it. We can bring the audience in to suggest edits.
That'd be great. Maggie, do you want to come on the show this week?
Sure.
And give us an update on your letter and tell us about your letter story?
Yes.
And also maybe sing.
Sure.
Allison wants you to sing.
Yeah.
So I have rehearsals on Thursdays, so I'm, you know, warmed up in time for the show on Thursday, but you know, up to you.
I think you should come on, and I'm trying to think what the right kind of revenge aria is for you to learn for in lieu of fun.
I feel like it's got to be something like I think.
I mean, if you were male, it would be La Vendetta from Figaro, but
yeah, isn't there some like vengeful thing in a magic flute story or something? I don't know.
You know what? I could Queen of the Night.
Yeah, that would be good.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that would be wild on Zoom. That would be wild on Zoom.
So
I'm loving this. You're acculturating me, Maggie.
We're gonna dismiss you, Maggie.
Thank you.
So you get an aria ready for us and a letter ready, and we will have you back.
We'll plan on Thursday. We'll let you know if it doesn't work.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Great.
So what about Maggie's idea about having a song of the day? We could alternate, like, and I mean, it does take up like a few minutes. We could play it at the end as we go.
Oh yeah, we could play it at the end. That would be good. We could alternate who has to come up with the song of the day. That could be good.
You want to do that?
Yeah, that'd be fine. I'd be up for that. I'm just going to warn you, mine's just going to be the Cheers theme song over and over again.
No. How about this as a rule? You cannot use the theme song of the show that you are using a background from.
Okay, that's fair.
Because otherwise, like, we'll all get like, it's like, you know, the bridesmaids having the same color as one another, right?
Okay, that's true. Okay, fine. You know, people still do that though, Ben.
I know, but it's, you know, kind of objectionable. We don't want to have like a theme.
Oh man. Okay, sure. That sounds fine.
Okay.
I like that idea.
Okay, Maggie. So you're coming back on Thursday for letter writing and aria singing, and we're gonna have in the meantime, we will start. Are you doing tomorrow song of the day, or am I?
Wait, are we doing mystery guest tomorrow? God damn
Yeah,
it.
tomorrow's mystery guest.
I tried. I tried to start early. At
Well,
least I'm
we can
realizing
have
it
only
now.
one mystery guest if you want. I have an
I
awesome mystery guest for tomorrow.
You do?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
We could just make my mystery guest the only guest.
Okay.
If
Sure.
that's like, if it's like stressful, you can dig
Yeah,
through
why don't we
calls
just start
tomorrow.
alternating mystery guests?
All right.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
I have a mystery guest that I've been trying to get on, but they have small children and it has been very difficult. And
Well,
so,
what about mystery guests and small children?
yes. It's like 3 small children. So it's like,
Yeah,
or
that
at
can get
least
loud.
2. So it might be a little crazy. I don't know that she wants to do that. So like, I mean, that one of the children is a very new person into the world. And so needs a lot of care. But anyways, yes, I'm fine alternating. That's a good architecture thing that we did today. The other thing I want to talk about in looking back at this week is I do think that we get to a sweet spot when we have like one person or 2 people. Like Alex and Nate, I felt like were 2 such brilliant people. They were so smart and both had great things to say. And like, we couldn't like take advantage of both of them at the same time to their full power. Does that make sense?
It's true, although I think we had a super good conversation with the both. Like, I wouldn't want to rule that we always have one person.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, but I do think the conversations with one person are often the best, and except on the occasions where the sort of rollicking good fun aspect of it is sort of the point, the conversations with 4 people do tend to get a little bit out of hand.
Yeah, I've been enjoying I'm glad. I remember when we had high school SCOTUS on and we were still trying to decide whether we're going to do it on weekends, and I was like, I'm so tired right now. At that point I was like so overwhelmed and exhausted from the last 2 weeks that I was like, I can't imagine not having weekends off of this. And now the highlight of my weekend is like the Saturday and Sunday show, because like things have quieted down and calmed down, and like the trying to stay alive thing has like trying to keep my dog alive thing has like gotten less acute. And so like I can kind of chill out. But I love just the you and me chats and
the critical thing to make it manageable is to reduce the planning to near zero.
I mean,
Right. So
that's why I said yes in the first place.
Like planning a daily show, for those of you in the audience who've never done daily journalism or daily television, particularly, that is a super labor intensive thing. And, you know, when you watch, for example, if you watch an hour of cable television, the number of human hours that go into the timing of that, you know, having this person, getting this person to agree to come into a studio at, you know, 5:07 hit time, getting that person made up, getting that person there reliably.
This is why I don't do TV.
No, this is
they pay you to do TV. They don't never pay. I'm not on any contract, so it's always just like my free time.
Right.
And it's such a sink.
But it is an enormously labor intensive thing to produce a TV show. On the other hand, to do what we're doing, which is basically we have a commitment to get 1 or more people to be on Zoom at a particular time, which, by the way, we're doing like 5 times a day anyway, because that's how we're doing all of our business now. And we are improvising roughly an hour. It's not timed, right? So if we go
But
over,
like the
or
people
if we
we're
go,
picking are people we know too. I think that they're known quantities. So they're like the scariness of like a host sitting on MSBC, never having met me or you or
or
someone
no,
else,
and then
right?
knowing what to talk about with
Not knowing
you,
what to
right?
talk about, not knowing what to like, not knowing whether this person's going to be a lunatic, not knowing whatever, and like suddenly put like that's not stressful to me because I trust the people you pick and you trust the people I pick, and like
And also, like, with somebody like Doug Bernstein, who we had on yesterday, you know exactly what to talk to Doug Bernstein about.
yeah.
And because you do, I can follow along and
But that's how
figure
I felt
out
with you
where
and
my
Corey.
points. Yeah, exactly. Corey and I have been good
Where I was
friends
like, and I was like, hey, because I'm a dum dum, can you explain this thing to me? And
right.
that was perfect. I mean,
Corey and I have been good friends for 15 years. Like, the idea of having a conversation with Corey for an hour is completely non-stressful. And so the whole idea of that we're trying to work with here is, what if we did something in which you reduce the stress of production to essentially zero? You don't worry. For the guy who was concerned about my lighting yesterday, you don't worry about that, right? I'm a little bit dark relative to my background. And the reason that I'm a little bit dark is that I don't have a light in front of me, and I do have the sun setting in back of me. And so I'm a
right.
little bit backlit. And you know what? I don't give a shit, because this is in lieu of fun. It's not professional production. And, and so if you can create that that ambience of like, what actually matters is the conversation with guests, the conversation between the two of us, then that is what we're maximizing, and everything else, including all the production values, rounds to zero.
I'm really like, this has turned into, for me, a comfort and a joy. Like, it's been enlightening and interesting. It's never boring. It like the hour always goes by really quickly. And I like when there is like, even when I'm feeling like I don't know who to invite or what the show should be about, like love that like you have people you can call. And then I was like, I've been wanting to get Doug on for weeks, but Doug is notoriously terrible about answering his cell phone. And so like I like, no, both he and Rebecca are like, I like give like they know it. They like are just terrible at it. And so it took me like it just was like one of those things where it's like, I know he's sitting around, he doesn't have anything to do. It just like it took me 4 days to like line that up. And then like once it was in place, it was like, okay. But I just like, some people like that are just going to take longer, and it's a little frustrating.
So should we plan the show for this week?
Yeah. So,
and then let's
well,
take
right
some questions, because people are going to get sick of just hearing us talk.
Yes, that's true. Monday we have Noah Feldman and Evelyn Dueck.
That's going to be fun.
It's going to be a great show. It's like they're talking about the oversight board, which is the thing that I've been working on for the past 11 months, and have an 80-page piece coming out in the Yale Law Journal about. But it is especially, it's going to be fascinating to talk to them about that and have them on.
And let's just say a couple words about who they. I mean, Noah Feldman is a very famous law professor.
Yes, Noah is at
Harvard, and
Noah has
Evelyn,
written a biography of James Madison. He worked on the Iraqi Constitution. He is long been like just behind the scenes, regarded by the academy and people in the academy as just like a one of the kind of this like a bright star.
He was a wunderkind until he stopped being quite so young.
Yes, until the kind fell off. Yes,
yeah, exactly.
But yes, no, it's true. And he was, and he still is. I mean, like he's incredibly edgy in his scholarship. He doesn't get stodgy or lazy. And
Evelyn is a little hard to describe. She's an Australian SJD student at Harvard Law School. She
I would say Evelyn's easy to describe.
Well, she's
I guess
brilliant.
Like, she's a little hard to describe. She's absolutely brilliant. I think that would be like the way that I would describe her.
No, but like why is it that we normally we wouldn't like she's she's earlier in her career than, well, with the exception of High School SCOTUS, she's earlier in her career than most of the people we've had on the show. She came to some prominence writing about disinformation and content moderation issues for Lawfare, where we found we always have some student contributors, and Evelyn is, just has done unbelievable work for Lawfare. If you haven't followed any of that, it's really worth your time.
I would say she's the only person that I feel like does exactly what I do and is interested in exactly what I'm interested in the entire world. Like, I think
that's pretty interesting.
Honestly, like, I just, that, like, I'm like, there's a few people that are like Venn diagrams that they kind of like mix, but she's like kind of solidly, and I think she is amazing and couldn't pick a better person to have a diversity of opinion with.
So that's Monday.
Yeah, that's Monday.
What about the rest of the week? Oh, we got to have Hannah Neprash. That whole idea of having Hannah and Alan Rosenstein on the same show fell apart because Hannah had a conference call when we had Alan on the show. They are married. They are both independently spectacular human beings and really interesting people. Hannah is a healthcare economist, and she thinks about questions in the economics of healthcare that just like other people don't think about. Like, for example, do doctors make more mistakes later in the day than earlier in the day? And like, what time should you go to the doctor during the day to have the least chance of being overprescribed antibiotics?
It sounds like, when should you schedule your hearing with the judge, before lunch or after lunch?
Yeah, it's a lot, like there's a lot of that stuff, but she's like fascinating and she does amazing stuff. And she's also super funny, and she has a unique skill of my acquaintance, which is the ability to compose on the spot a limerick on any subject on command.
I like that.
Which is not like, she used to write a column for Washington City paper, the news of the week in limericks. And
when I was in 7th grade, I wrote an entire biography about myself in limericks that was 8 pages long.
Well, you and she are going to have a conversation about that.
Amazing, I had 8 pages to write about
myself. It might take up the whole hour. All right, so we'll get Hannah. What else should we do this
Tuesday
week?
we have Jillian York from EFF and Sarah Roberts from UCLA, both of whom are going to kind of follow up the conversation with Noah and Evelyn about kind of like looking long term about what all of this means for what the oversight board means for speech, and then just generally what's happening with tech. And that's like kind of our content moderation corner for the
well, but I think we should do maybe we should do one more content moderation show, which is that you and Quinta Jurecic and Evelyn and Alina Polyakova do this show.
Our disinformation.
Disinformation cast, which I'm still heartbroken. When we decided to do a weekly disinformation show, we were going to run it on Thursday, and Kate had what I thought was the best idea ever, which was to call it Disinformation Wednesday, which of course would run on Thursday. And
that was so good.
Kate proposed this, and I was the only one who fell in love with the idea. I thought it was just like a great thing that Lawfare could do to inject a little bit of chaos into the world, and it got as they say in the Talmud, my children have defeated me. My staff just put the kibosh on it. And so I think we should have the disinformation cast crew come on and just have a disinformation party. And I promise that when we have the disinformation cast crew, I will not say a true sentence.
I know. I love that idea. Why don't we do that on Wednesday? We'll call it Disinformation Thursdays, and we can maybe tape it for the podcast.
That's a great idea. I think that's a lot of fun, but I don't know what day we can do it, because we have to. That is something where we have to.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
We have Thursdays, but it was going to be hopefully Maggie.
Oh yeah, Maggie's got to come back for letter writing and aria singing.
And
Sounds
so
like we've
and so
got
that
kind
gives
of a
us
week.
that basically gives us the week. And then so it's like basically figuring out Hannah on Friday or Wednesday or
Wednesday.
with disinformation.
Well, let's text her and find out.
Okay, you text Hannah. I'll text disinformation cast.
Okay.
Or email them. I don't have Alina's number.
Okay.
In the meantime,
should we
have
take
a
some
question.
questions?
Do you want to promote? I want to hear about Tony Cava's trip to the grocery store.
Okay, let's bring Tony Cava on.
Yeah.
Tony Cava, let's hear about your trip to the grocery store.
No, hey, can you guys hear me?
We hear you just
hey,
fine.
Tony.
Excellent. Hey, hi there. I don't know, you can't see me, but I guess that's okay.
But if we could, you would look exactly like a Tony Cava.
I would. I'd be sitting around in a white T-shirt with pasta sauce stains on it, which I am actually. Yeah. So a couple days ago, you guys were talking about this, about kind of paying things forward and keeping the economy going, and various ways to do that. Right before everything shut down here in Washington State, I stopped by my favorite coffee shop. I put $50 on the tab on my credit card, and I put $10 in the tip jar to cover the tips in advance. And then they closed the next day, but that's fine. The whole idea was to kind of put some money in their bank. Today, and then after your show a couple days ago, my wife and I called up our dog daycare place, and I bought 3 or 4 doggy daycare days in advance and put it on their tab.
Yeah, we did that too. We bought a lot of doggy daycare days.
We also did that.
Yeah, the dog's missing that. But yeah, today I went to the Whole Foods here in town. Has taken the whole.
Where are you located, Tony?
Bellingham, Washington. It's north of Seattle. Little college town south of Vancouver, just south of the border. Really nice town on the water. It's a beautiful place. It's one I live in, like supposedly the most liberal precinct in America, just about. So that's saying something.
There is definitely not the case where I am.
Well, I love it up here. Washington, we have a great governor. People here are all taking this whole thing really seriously. And if we could just keep the folks from Idaho out, we might have a chance of opening back up in a few months. Who knows? But be that as it may, yeah, the Whole Foods here takes it very seriously. So that's where I've been doing my shopping, and they have old man hour. So I'm able to go down there at 8 in the morning. And I thought about what you guys said. So I got, like, when I checked out, I got $10, or and I'm not that generous. I think I got 4 or 5 $10 bills. I put my groceries away. I came back into the store and I tried to give folks like tips, essentially. So a couple of the cashiers took a little bit of convincing. One was very excited and took it right away. She was very excited that I bought her lunch, she said. And a lot of the other folks just, they wouldn't take it. They just, I asked before I did it. I asked the manager if there was rules against it. He said there wasn't, and he thought it was a great idea. And
I think that's nice, but like people have like weird conceptions of pride. I don't think that you need to take, I think you shouldn't feel, I mean, it feels bad to like try to give a gift and then have it kind of like, have someone kind of be like, no. So I very much get that. And I'm sorry that happened, but like, I think it's really sweet that you tried to do it. And I think,
awesome.
Yeah, and I think it's so great.
Can I make a suggestion about next time?
Yeah.
Let me just say one thing though. I did not feel bad that people didn't take the money, because like I've worked in food service, I've worked in service industries, and I really understood where they were coming from. So I was totally good with it. I have to say that if there's one thing this thing has taught me, other than I really love and appreciate my wife, but is that how important these 3rd and 4th places are. Grocery shopping is actually really important to me, honestly. I lived in Italy for a while and kind of learned how to shop every day. And the grocery has just kind of become like a 3rd place, as strange as that sounds. And also like the coffee shop, I really am missing that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I am somebody who, like, my current book that I just released is really the first book that I've written not in coffee shops, which was because it was co-authored by somebody who was in my office. So
Yes.
Susan and I did our work together in the office. But normally I really do a lot of my writing in coffee shops. And so I'm very sensitive to the value of the third place. But I think you have an ally in the manager, and the next time, just give it to the manager to, to give to people. And, that way it comes off a little bit more as a bonus and a little bit less as charity from a stranger, which does have for a lot of people have a pride issue associated with it. And I don't think of this as charity. I think of this as the Brookings Institution is keeping me whole.
100%.
Right? I am keeping my gym, my doggy daycare, my
you're maintaining your way of life that you want to return to.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like I'm in that same boat where I have my job, I'm getting paid, I'm working at home, I'm getting paychecks, and I kind of feel the same way.
There are all these people
things are in place
who I want to exist when this is done.
Right.
And, there is somebody who comes and cleans my house sometimes, and I want her to still be a solvent human being. And so I don't think of any of this as charity. I think of this as being
an economy.
Right.
Exactly.
Maintaining the economy's capacity to do the things that you want it to do. And by the way, the marginal cost to me over what I'm paying anyway is zero. I'm eating out less than I was before. Much less. I'm cooking more. So the question is, should I cook only, or should I make a point of doing some takeout with the communities, with the restaurants that I actually care about and want to keep in business in my neighborhood that I do business with regularly? So it's like the marginal cost to me is really, really near non-existent. And I think, like, if we can all do a little of that, we can make a very big difference.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I thought about was, like, I've been walking around with the same $10 bill in my wallet for like 6 weeks now. It's like there's nothing to spend money on, really. And I do think that it was probably more comfortable when I kind of paid the tips and the tip in advance at the coffee shop. That's kind of like the normal way of doing things. And it doesn't come off as charity that way, or like buying the doggy daycare, buying 3 visits in advance kind of thing. So I think that's probably good advice, kind of coming up with a more kind of gracious way of maybe quote unquote tipping someone, but
and I said this to Scott Shapiro before, and it was really touching. He wrote me later and said that he used it and it worked really well. In New York, one of the things that I've always, I've mentioned before that I studied cognitive psychology and neuroscience, but like before I became a lawyer, and part of that was like, one of the things that I learned in that is that people, from a social psychology level, people really care. Like, people really just want to be acknowledged. Like, this is like part of, like, people just want to be acknowledged, and to, like, when you say a person's name, it's really, and this is not just like, I don't know how to like get a home sale or whatever. Like, this is just like basically like being a good person. And if you say a person's name back to them or give them an honorific, even if it's a complete stranger, I try to do this all the time when people come up to me and beg on the street. They say over and over again that, like, one of the worst parts of homelessness, one of the worst parts of like begging and being an addict is like feeling like you're an invisible person on the street. And so like, I always try to, I'm like, I'm not trying to lecture anyone, but like, I just always try to like, I find it really, I've gotten always really wonderful feedback, and I think it means something. Like, people are surprised, it seems like, when I look back in the eyes of someone and say like, I'm really sorry, I have no cash. Like, I literally actually usually don't. I never carry cash. I
Right.
can't give you anything today, sir. And they say that, and they like are shocked that I didn't just like walk by and ignore them.
Right.
And I think it's a
Right.
nice thing to do. And it kind of, but that carries over to like everything, to like, I don't know, like bag people and cashiers. I think it's just really nice that you noticed, Tony. It just,
Yeah,
I do.
Oh, well, thanks. Thanks for
and
that.
keep trying.
I will indeed. Well, hey, I just want to let you know really quick, Ben, that your book is actually one of the first books I've read not in a coffee shop. So
Well, I hope you enjoy is the weird word for it, but I hope you valued it, and thanks for reading it.
And thanks
Yeah,
for coming on,
you're
Tony.
welcome.
Have a good one.
Hey, yeah, you too, guys. See you now. Bye.
So, Ryan, you have a question about Bill Barr, and I find myself dreading all questions about Bill Barr for reasons.
I'm putting my rally cap on.
So, what's on your mind, Ryan?
Oh, hey, can you guys hear me?
We hear you just fine.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was just wondering about what you thought about the Fox News interview, and what your response was to his comments about the Inspector General, the removal of the Inspector General, as well as his comments about the Russia investigation.
So actually, that's an easy one. Barr's
Is this stuff from like a couple weeks ago, or is this
no.
anything?
This was a couple days ago. He gave an interview to Fox in which he made a number of misstatements regarding the circumstances of the removal of Inspector General Michael Atkinson. And he also continued his kind of conspiracy theorizing, again, without evidence about the Russia investigation. So look, I mean, I've talked about this a fair bit. There is nothing to be said in his defense right now on this stuff. There are two possibilities. One is one is that he knows something as a result of the Durham investigation. This is about the Russia investigation. I'll talk about Atkinson separately. One is that he knows something about as a result of the Durham investigation, and he's kind of teasing the results of an ongoing investigation. And that is wildly inappropriate. And it is something that the Justice Department simply should never be doing. The other possibility, which I think is the much more likely possibility, to be perfectly blunt about it, is that he's talking out of his ass, and that he is steeped in an ecosystem of misinformation. And he now look, I
That
don't
seems so right to me, Ben. How is that? Like, I don't know. I just like I saw him.
I don't want to pretend to be a person without a point of view on this, right? Because like Jim Comey is a personal friend, Jim Baker is a personal friend, Pete Strzok is a personal friend, Lisa Page is a personal friend. All of the people that are the subjects of these conspiracy theories, including, by the way, me. I am the subject of some of these conspiracy theories. When people talk about the insurance policy conspiracy, if you look in the sort of nether regions of the internet, and
They literally link that to you?
Yeah, I'm connected to the insurance policy conspiracy because, you see, I forget whether it was Pete texted Lisa something about the insurance policy, and then a few weeks or months later, I wrote an article on Lawfare a few days before the election about how we need an insurance policy against Trump's election. And so obviously, the use of the same common metaphor by two people shows that lawfare and I am kind of the puppeteer directing the insurance policy conspiracy. And you will find various iterations of that version. Some of them deal with me directly, some of them don't. But the point is, it's like, I don't want to pretend that I don't have a point of view about this. This stuff is bullshit. And for the Attorney General to be peddling it. And by the way, you know, someone's going to point out that when Bill Barr was appointed, I was relatively supportive in a qualified sort of way. And I was encouraged by his appointment. And that is true. I used to know Bill Barr, and I've always thought highly of him. And I think he's a very smart guy. And I said a lot of those things. And so I couldn't be more personally flummoxed by his behavior, which strikes me as appalling and really beneath the office of the Attorney General, either because he knows something and he's kind of dangling the investigative outcomes, or because he's just kind of doing the Attorney General as Fox News pundit thing, untethered from reality. Either of those is, in different ways and for different reasons, a completely unacceptable behavior in an Attorney General. And so the short answer to your question, Ryan, what's up with Bill Barr? I don't know. I really don't know. It's nothing good. And he's like, I'm sure, I don't think he's a Machiavellian figure kind of rubbing his hands with glee. I think whatever he's doing, I think he believes in at some level, but I can't for the life of me figure out what's animating him or what he's doing, why he's doing what he's doing right now. And honestly, I
couldn't do that before the pandemic. So that's like, okay.
Now, as to Atkinson, what he said was just false. And the story that he told about the whistleblower and Atkinson's behavior just isn't true. And so he's, in addition to everything else, he's just kind of, and the New York Times had a very good story about this. I won't rehash the details of it. But I mean, he really is at this point peddling misinformation about stuff that is, you know, within his kind of jurisdiction, and he really shouldn't be doing that. And so I don't know what the answer to the question is, except that whatever the answer is, it's bad.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think I would like to talk about the U.S. Postal Service.
Well, then we should bring in Dryab WB.
Yeah.
Who wants to talk about the U.S. Postal Service.
Yeah.
Dryab WB, first of all, who are you and why and what's on your mind?
So my name is David.
Okay, good. We're very afraid of trolls, and
we can barely hear you though.
Yeah, Monster,
speak into your
get a little closer
microphone.
to your mic.
If only I knew where the mic was on this phone.
Well, you're closer to it now. You're
now you're closer. So
I recently was seeing on Twitter, among other places, that the United States Postal Service is having funding issues and is asking Congress for more funding, which, to my understanding, they don't normally get much of. And there's been lots of going back and forth about whether or not we should just shutter the Postal Service. It's not that good, but lots of what I know contradicts that, and I'm hoping you guys know more.
Yeah.
Where are you?
Great question.
I'm in Colorado.
Yeah, and are you in urban Colorado, suburban Colorado, or rural Colorado?
Suburban.
Okay.
Are you in Boulder?
No, I'm just south of Denver.
Oh, okay. Sorry. My brother's in Boulder. Okay. This is such a great question. One, because I just built a post box for the first time. And then two, it got delivered. It worked. and the post person came to it and that actually worked, and I felt very happy. But mostly because I actually think it relates to our conversation, David, that we did. I don't know if you saw it, but the conversation we had with Nate Pursley and Alex Stamos this week around mail voting, basically. I am like not quite. I would not call myself a libertarian, but I am more tolerant of libertarian ideas before dismissing them than I think a lot of people that are on the progressive side of my politics are. And one of the things that I've thought is a great inefficiency, obviously, is like the US postal system. And I've thought this for some time. And when I was actually, for various reasons, I've had, when I was working for law firms very briefly, had moments where I was like actually analyzing this because the firm that I was working for was representing the US Postal Service. And yes, there is a way that like the US Postal Service has inherent redundancies and inefficiencies and all of these things, but it is also a public service. So if you can get in-street delivery to your home for free, and you can get in-street pickup to your home for free, and no matter where you are, and it comes all of the times, no matter what the weather, or pandemic. I'm actually like, Ben, like, feel free to like pitch in here. I have really mixed feelings about I've always felt mixed feelings about whether the Postal Service, like Amtrak, should continue to be some type of like pseudo government, pseudo private entity. I feel like it's super problematic and like, I don't think
the post office is a complicated case. Amtrak is a complicated case.
Why? Why do you think Amtrak's complicated, not the post office?
Because Amtrak does not provide any service that is not accessible by other means. And
you could say the same thing for the post office.
No, you can't.
With UPS and FedEx?
Well, let's talk about that.
Yes, let's talk about that.
So first of all, there are places in the country that FedEx and UPS do not deliver letters. They deliver packages. And the 49 cents or whatever a first-class postage stamp costs right now, letter is not something that there's a competitive service for. It is, I don't think it is a business. It is a service that the federal government provides. And the end-to-end quality at that very low price is simply not something that any private company is going to generate. So I could see saying the federal government shouldn't be in the package delivery business. But I can't see saying that first-class mail should not exist. And by the way, for referring back to our conversation with Nate and Alex, if you're serious about the idea of vote by mail, you need the mail. And so, look, I think if you look at the cost of running the Postal Service, and I have not looked at what the annual deficit of the Postal Service is, what the congressional appropriation required to keep it in business is. It is a tiny rounding error of the federal budget problem. And if you want to identify the entirety of the federal budget problem, none of these services that we talk about are what generates it. What generates it are A, entitlement spending as the population ages, and B, under taxation relative to the commitment to entitlement spending that we have in this country. And so if the issue is, well, we can't afford it, the answer is that's just not true. We can afford it. If the issue is the federal deficit, well, we have a federal deficit problem, but it ain't caused by the post office, and it ain't caused by foreign aid, and it's not caused by any of the things that people complain about. It's caused by Medicare, Social Security, and the fact that we decide as a deliberate matter as a society to undertax relative to the commitments that we make. Finally,
Mel brings up the point that this is like the postal clause allows Congress to establish post offices and post roads. That is true, but that is also like, that is a broadly construed that has been a broadly, as far as I know, that has been a fairly broadly construed understanding, and that like that could mean that there was some types of privatization. Not that you would do away with the USPS, but it would become some type of privatized entity, right?
well, and also Congress has the authority to do it. It doesn't have to do it.
Right, exactly.
It doesn't. And in the time of the founding, there was no alternative to it. Now,
Yep.
I am open to the idea if a company is there that wants to be a sort of regulated monopoly or whatever, like a public utility, and perform the service that the post office performs at roughly the prices that it performs. I'm open to that. I don't believe it's possible.
So wait, why do you hate Amtrak?
Well, so Amtrak strikes me as a different proposition. Amtrak, I don't hate Amtrak, but I think it's a different question. The question with Amtrak is you have a few routes that are commercially viable, like New York to New York, New York to Washington, New York to Boston, San Francisco to LA. There are a few places in the country where there are intercity rail routes that really make sense commercially. Yes. And then there are all of the rest of the services that Amtrak provides that make no sense commercially. Yep. And so the argument with Amtrak is, why should we not have commercial rail lines that do the intercity services that make sense, and not have the services that don't make any sense from a commercial point of view? And the answer to that question is because members of Congress like having Amtrak stops in their districts. Mm-hmm. And so Amtrak is much more,
that's absolutely true.
It's not a universal service thing. It's not it's not a public service that is provided equally. It is just a form of pork and a series of legit commercial lines that probably could be handled by private companies. And so, look, I'm not gunning for Amtrak. I use it all the time. I like it. But I do think it's a very different thing from the post office, which is every day providing all of us a service that you can't get from a private company.
I mean, okay, so now I see how you're differentiating. I was thinking much bigger picture, which is just in terms of like government entities involved in moving things from one place to another, whether it be humans or packages. And like, I was so that was kind of the very broad brush in which I was kind of like, I was looping those two things in, but I buy all of your distinctions and I think they're smart. I actually think that, go to Bob. That's great.
Yeah. So before we sign off for the evening, I want to bring in Bob Loeb, who is a great appellate advocate and a frequent lawfare contributor and a former Justice Department appellate lawyer who has a question. But also, Bob, you should come on the show sometime.
Happy to do so.
Hi, Bob. Nice to meet you.
Talk closer to your mic.
Talk closer to my mic.
There you go.
There you go. That's much better.
Right. What's on your mind?
Oh, just wanted to chime in here. My question was, I was noticing a lot of Twitter trolls and bots really politicizing the virus. And of course, the president is already doing that himself in his daily, briefings. But I wanted to sort of get your views on whether you think Russia is already up to mischief on this and what you expect in the fall.
What do you think, Kate?
I mean, I don't really know what is happening with disinformation with Russia right now. I can imagine that they're gearing up. I think Russia has been one of the places that's been least hit by the virus. So that kind of leaves them in a strong position. but which is also really weird to me. It's either like, it's either they've hushed it up really well. I don't know what's coming out of there, but like they're adjacent to China. It doesn't like, it just strikes me as like, and they're adjacent to Europe. Like it seems, I mean, obviously that they should be like having the same types of issues. Um, but they haven't been reporting the same numbers of cases or losses. And um, as for disinformation, I just kind of think that there's a few things happening right now in content moderation, Bob, that are super interesting. One of them is that Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter has had to send all of their human content moderators home. So the tens of thousands of people that normally do content moderation around the world, that adjudicate these types of things behind the scenes at a private level, well, they're gone. So now it's just bots doing it, and a shoestring level of human content moderators that are reviewing for things that are exigent, like child abuse, terrorism, suicide, and self-harm. And then also included in this is misinformation around COVID, and some other types of some small like areas. And so it's kind of interesting to see what's going to happen in terms of what this is going to mean for the long term. I think that all of the sites are learning to identify bots and trolls. Bots are different than trolls. I just want to like say that we loop them in. Bots are like much more, well, they're much more automated and deployed like from automated accounts, whereas trolls are like a little bit more like the people that we get in our
Q&A.
Yes, our Zoom bombers. Yes, exactly. We get our Zoom bombers. And so there's just kind of this, so there's going to be kind of an uptick in both. And I think that it's just a great idea to kind of be wary of everything that you see right now, honestly.
So I do want to say that look, Kate forgets more in a week about this subject than I have ever known. But I will say I do think that there will be a lot of a major set of disinformation efforts in the run up to the fall. B, they will not all come from Russia. And C, and this is really important to remember, which is that, major information warfare efforts or information operations efforts, like all campaign activity, affect things at the margins. And, they will not turn, they can nudge a close election one direction rather than the other direction, but they cannot make a significant impact in an environment in which one candidate is solidly defeating the other. And so I do think it's important to remember what are the waves and what are the tides here. And I do think we're in an environment in which this election is likely to be won or lost based on the tides by one side or the other. If Donald Trump is perceived as having done a broadly effective job in responding to this crisis, he will be reelected. And if he is not perceived as having done an effective job, he will not be reelected. And the effect that information efforts are going to have on that broad perception rather than events strikes me as much more likely to be small than in 2016, where we had a kind of a stasis and a status quo that we could fight over. Here, I think the circumstances are going to speak very loudly. Should we wrap up, Kate? Kate is muted for reasons that are not clear to me. Not sure how that happened, but
Sorry, hi.
successfully unmuted
I
her.
muted myself. I was like nodding vigorously to like show my support of what you were saying, but I couldn't like be like, yep, that's right. Yeah.
I'm not honestly sure why Kate was unable to unmute herself.
Yeah, it's
but
a little
I'm
weird.
still learning the settings of this webinar.
Okay, before we
deal.
wrap up for the day, I want to ask about your baby cannon shirt, and then I'm going to make you ask about my John Deere hat.
Oh, so the baby cannon, this is not just the baby cannon shirt. This is the order of the baby cannon shirt.
Oh, I love that.
And the order of the baby cannon designs.
Are we ever going to hear the origin story of baby cannon?
Yeah, but it takes more time than we should do
but
today.
for right now, we're just going to dangle it as like a future thing.
Yeah, remind me sometime earlier in the hour and I can tell the story.
Great.
So baby cannon shirt, I was early in baby cannon's life, was contacted on Twitter by a woman in Oregon who named Quenby. And Quenby is a graphic designer and asked if she could make designs for baby cannon. And I was like, sure, whatever. And she made these incredible designs, which we made a challenge coin out of, and we
That's great.
And we made a whole bunch of merch. And Quenby has since done all the sort of lawfare, the lawfare challenge coin was designed by Quenby.
Good for her. That's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's a lovely thing, and I think the order of the baby cannon coin and associated material, including we have a giant pillow with it. It's just one of my favorite things of the last few years. So tell us about your John Deere. You have some like awesome pictures today of yourself with post holes and the John Deere hat.
Yeah, no, I just sent those to you. Those are not to
Sorry.
everyone.
I thought you tweeted them.
No, I tweeted some photos of my general kind of my construction projects, but I wasn't in them. But no, this is my John Deere hat. These overalls are from my mother-in-law. She like sent them to me in the mail after she saw me buying overalls on eBay because I wanted overalls to be able to like do farming with. I don't know if you realize this, but when you bend over a lot with farming and like you get terrible sunburns in the small of your back, or like there's all these types of things. And so like there's like, it's actually great to have overalls. They're very functional. So I actually really love them, and they're the only jeans that I bugged out with. So I've just basically got sweatpants and this, and then but the John Deere hat was from a thrift store in rural Montana, where I spend my summers every year working on a garlic farm for the past 10 years. And I saw this hat, and it was like, I normally buy like vintage stuff at this thrift store. Like they have like all these great old Woolrich shirts and things like that. And like, but I saw this cap and I was just kind of like, that is kind of a basic cap. And I was like, but it also at the time I did not have a hat, and I was like getting horribly sunburned, and the netting on the back is so great. And I was like, oh, now I get it. I totally get it. It's a very functional. Anyways, now I love it, and it just lives out in Cape Cod. And it's actually quite nice on my head. It's like warm when I go out and work during the day when I start my day.
Well, on that note, we are going to wrap up.
See you tomorrow with your mystery guest.
Yeah, so tomorrow we're going to have one mystery guest, and then we will go from there. It's
Are you going to play us out already? Do you already?
No.
Oh, thank God.
Song of the day will start tomorrow. Are you doing the first song of the day, or am I?
I'll do it. You got the mystery guest. I'll do the first song of the day.
All right. You're going to do the first song of the day. I'm going to produce the mystery guest. Show for tomorrow is planned. And remember, if you can't have fun, in lieu of fun, there's us.